I do know that my mum's not great at being emotionally vulnerable and sharing her thoughts and feelings and praising and all that sort of thing. So there probably was a degree of, when I was a kid, chasing that feedback from my mum and never actually getting it, and then developing that own narrative in my own head of try a bit harder, maybe she'll actually say well done, keep trying, maybe she'll eventually be like yay. And I think probably my wife helped me with this, and she kind of made me aware to this situation with my mother, a few other different things that happened in our relationship and with me and my wife and my mum, kind of me and my wife becoming one unit, and then my mum not being too keen on that because she was losing the son that I guess she'd manipulated for the last 20, 25, 30 years. But Sarah opened my eyes to the fact that, you don't have to actually seek her approval. You can just do what the hell you like. I guess that probably would be one of the cool things that kind of.
If I could ask you, when you think about your mum, there will be phrases, there will be words, there will be things that she will have said. So just don't say anything to me for the moment, but just think that in your head. Have you got a phrase that she would have said? Don't speak, just think. You got one?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when you hear that in your head, whose voice is it?
House.
There you go. So it's that voice that you've tried to get rid of in your thinking, because that dialogue is something that you're trying to get away from. And even that, as a very small example, is exactly how a lot of people I work with are running patterns of unwanted behavior because we've taken it on unconsciously. We've taken it on because the chemicals in our body have made us react to something in a certain way that it's then become part of our DNA. It's become part of how we think. It's become part of how we're driven. So even without wanting to think like that, you think about that situation that person has internalized for you, and your chemicals start to produce those feelings that drag you straight back into unwanted limiting beliefs. But you're absolutely spot on when you say it's self-awareness. It's being aware of imposter syndrome, being aware of feeling anxious, feeling stressed, not feeling good enough. Am I a fake? Am I going to get found out? I want to get another job. I don't really think I'm qualified enough because I'm hanging on to this job because they think I'm good. This was luck. When I go out in the big wide world, I'm going to be caught out. But it starts with self-awareness.
You often find that when someone comes to you and says, I've got these feelings of not being good enough, I'm anxious, I'm going to get found out. Do you usually find that those assumptions that they're making are incorrect and they are good at their job? Or do you find that there are some people that actually are imposters? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, good question. My experience is that people don't often know that they are in that state of feeling like an imposter. They will give it away when they say, well, this is within the relationship. When you're working with somebody, the most important thing is the relationship. And the relationship starts by communication, by the way you greet people, the way you treat people, the way you're interested in them, the way you want to find out more about them, and the way you bring your whole self as a coach or as a therapist to that relationship without bringing any of your own issues. So you start to follow a practice by a guy called Carl Rogers, who said three most important things is that you give people unconditional positive regard. You are absolutely there for them without your own issues. You therefore feel congruent in yourself because you know that you are presenting as somebody fully present for the client who's going to listen and who's going to give them that time of day. And then in that hour that you're working with somebody, they are the most important thing around you. And the third most important thing, he called these core conditions, is called empathy. You show that you understand. You don't criticize, you don't judge, you don't make assumptions about what people are trying to explain to you. So in the relationship, it's the communication that you bestow one upon the other, that you're both prepared to be open and honest. You then, by showing empathy, invite people to start to trust you. Trust isn't bought, trust is earned. And it's when people trust you, clients trust you, friends trust you, that they start to open up because they start to feel safe when they're with you. And if they feel safe, they then allow themselves to feel vulnerable. And in feeling vulnerable, they will tell you things that have been troubling them, things that they wouldn't automatically immediately say, oh, by the way, I think I've got imposter syndrome. It doesn't happen like that. It's a long journey. It's that journey of communicating, supporting, being fully present, showing empathy so that people start to feel that they can trust you and that you are worthy of their trust. They start to feel safe. They then feel vulnerable. And that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, so they don't know
I
they
don't
don't know
know.
they've got imposter syndrome, so that potentially they've got this, and I guess it comes back to childhood trauma or whatever it may be. They've developed this outer crust of self-defense where they're like, I can't open up, can't share my feelings, but in reality, there is a degree of discomfort that I'm experiencing. I need to find out what this is if I'm
What
to
it
then
is.
unlock full potential.
Yeah.
And that's they come to you or another therapist or coach or whatever, and it's a good coach who then approaches that engagement with empathy, love,
Absolutely.
kindness, and open mind presence,
Absolutely.
patience, all that good stuff, that then allows them then to be vulnerable, and they actually then are present with their own feelings, I guess, and then they start developing that self-awareness, and then the imposter syndrome is kind of uncovered and revealed that that's the actual
It is
problem.
revealed, and in my experience, and my experience isn't unique by any stretch of the imagination, but I have discovered that if you can talk to people about things concerning their learning, so how do you know that you're not going to be good enough to do another job? How do you know that you don't have the skill set to be able to take or even apply for that job? Imposter syndrome often shows itself because people hold themselves in a position in a company, try and keep a low profile, don't go for promotion because they think, I don't think I'm good enough. So if you start to realize that, there is this learning cycle where there is this unconscious incompetence, we don't know what we don't know, you then start to realize that there might be something there. So it becomes a conscious you become aware of something that you don't know. You then practice something so that you become competent consciously all the time. And then when it's eventually been learned by your muscle memory, you slip into this thing called unconscious competence, that you can do things without even having to think about it. And the best example of that is when we learn to drive. You're suddenly faced with gears, with mirrors, with brakes, with handbrakes, with all sorts that you think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to manage all of this. But over time, you manage, and then you get in the car and you just toddle off. So what I like to do with clients is get them to do a mind map, do a Tony Bazan mind map of what is it that you know. Start from what it is that you are hoping to achieve in the next job or in your current job or in a promotion. Okay, then write it down. Then find out everything that's attached to that. And it's when you see actually what your contacts are like and what you actually are in control of that you start to feel less of an imposter. So you start to peel, if you like, the layers of the onion away. So somebody starts to realize, actually, yeah, I do know this stuff. Then we can start to talk about what it is that has given them that limiting belief about themselves that they weren't able to.
Yeah, the confidence grows. Yeah. So it's about approaching those feelings logically rather than feelings. I mean, the feelings to drive your actions. You try and nip that in the bud and then sit down, mind map, journal, diary, whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
Approach them logically and then see where that lack of confidence is potentially coming from. And as well as trying to figure out the trigger so you can kind of manage those emotions a little bit, it's also about finding maybe where using it to empower yourself, I guess, and fill those gaps of knowledge and equip yourself
absolutely.
with and building your confidence by investing in your own kind of knowledge and expertise, isn't it?
Absolutely. But also understanding that if we stay in the same mindset, we're just going to keep producing the same chemicals, which are going to keep us where we've always been.